Welcome to Bury Your Bookie, a Degenerate Friday edition. I'm Jeff DeForest. Very happy to have you with us here for what we hope is a great preview to the weekend. We've had some selections on the show throughout the week. The professor's going to join us, and we'll try and nail down a few college football selections for you on the program as well. But it's always weird when you have like that mystery line. I don't know if you guys were dealing with this yesterday. Everybody that you talked to about the Thursday night game, most of their conversation was prefaced with, well, I don't know why that line is Jets -1.5. They shouldn't be favored over anybody. And that's true. And you start to wonder, who are these people that are in the know? Is this stuff actually scripted? Because how do they know? I mean, that line just hovered there, 1.5, 2, 1.5, 2. People kept talking about how the Jets were 2-6, and Houston was coming in at 6-2, rolling. C.J. Stroud maybe compromised a little bit in that game because his receivers were out, but was it enough to compensate for the ineptitude of the New York Jets? They had a coach that was revoking memories of Rich Kotite. Aaron Rodgers was looking like some burnt out leftover from the Haight-Ashbury district that had done too many drugs in his past and was waltzing around the facility humming Joni Mitchell tunes. And there was no reason to believe that the Jets all of a sudden were going to turn things around. They've suffered and incurred any number of horrendous losses indicative of a team that is on a losing streak, which they were, 5 straight games. So they're favored in this one over the 6-2 Houston Texans all day long. All anybody was talking about, including the people that came on the show and selected the Jets, which we had 2 of our handicappers do that. They kept saying, well, this is one of those things, Houston traveling, and it's a short week for them, and they're on the road. And in the first half of that game, it couldn't have looked like any more of a disaster. But you always wonder who it is that's in the know that kept that line, very mysterious looking line, right where it was the entire week, and then ultimately prevailed as it turned out the so-called smart money was right. All right, if you are betting these games, and hopefully you came out on the right end of that, although it on the surface appeared a little far-fetched. Basketball fans, it's that time of the year again. We're early in the season. Already some things starting to show up. The NBA is back from opening tip-off to buzzer beaters. BetOnline has you covered. They have the best odds, the biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all of your favorite teams. This season, every game matters. BetOnline has every stat, matchup breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the game itself. And it's not just the NBA. BetOnline has odds on everything from football, Major League Baseball, of course. They were big with the postseason now. We're already posting props on the upcoming year. The NHL to political props as well, with Election Day around the corner. Head to the website today to get in on all the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, we're going to feature the professor on today's show, get into some college football. There is action tonight, and the professor has been particularly effective in these Friday night games that he's been selecting for us. And, Professor, how are you? Good to have you on the program, my friend.
I'm good, Deef. How are you?
I'm all right. I don't know. Did you get into this thing at all with this? I mean, we talk about it. Mystery lines. You mention it quite frequently in your comments and analysis on these college football
We've
games.
got one this week.
Yeah, I mean, and that was the case for me with this Jets Houston line, where the Jets were favored at 2-6
You know
over
what?
a 6-2 Houston team.
I don't get that much involved with NFL. Usually, if I'm doing NFL, just watching the game, action level type stuff. But that one, I probably had a dozen people ask me about that line going into everybody on the Houston side. I read on Twitter yesterday. I think it's the guy from the Circus Sportsbook in Vegas indicate that in terms of the action in Vegas, books were more cited into the Jets, meaning the public was betting the Houston. It was the number one NFL game of the year in terms of the money line and the spread in terms of the books taking a side. I sort of got the line in that Houston has not been good against the spread, has not been good against bad teams, and we're missing all their wide receivers coming into the game. So I got the line a little bit in that sense. What I didn't get was the action because, I mean, the game opened it to everybody, Houston, Houston, Houston. It only got down to 1.5. And then I think I saw it bounce to 3 at kickoff. So in terms of that, and then, again, if you are a conspiracy type, uh, fourth quarter, crucial fourth down. The Jets fail, and Houston gets called for what team seems to be a total phantom illegal contact call, which leads to that Garrett Wilson catch in the back of the end zone. Which, forgetting the conspiracy stuff, can somebody fucking explain to me the logic of the NFL with these catch not a catch rules? So if you catch it and your toe is in bounds, but then after you establish your heel lands that much out of bounds, that's not a catch. But now if your shin hits before the knee hits, which is, kind of the way legs work, the shin is low. That is a catch, even though the knee's clearly out. I don't understand. Do you remember the old John Madden book, One Knee Equals 2 feet? That
Yeah.
makes sense compared to what apparently the rules are now, where
Oh, it's
if
crazy.
part of your shin makes contact with the ground before your knee lands out of bounds, that's it. I, I, I
And they got all these old guys that broke in to officiating when Ben Dreith was a young man. And they're analyzing this stuff, and they never have a confirmed opinion on it. It's on, well, you know what? That's kind of up in the air. It's like, well, why the fuck are we paying you $250,000 or whatever it is a game to sit there and make these comments? But
and now
I go
you
back to
got
the Sandlot. If the ball ever hit the ground, I don't care. I mean, how it came about. You could have your hands underneath it. If the ball, any part of it, touched, scraped, brushed the ground, it was no fucking catch. And if you tried to say that it was, you would likely have your tires slashed as you were pulling out of the parking lot there because nobody was buying it. And now, I mean, you see this all the time where the ball's like scraped along the ground and they go ahead and they allow it as a catch. And then they start going, I don't think Quincy could have dissected that play any more than they did as they tried to figure out if it was a touchdown or not on the Garrett Wilson. I mean, a great grab. Looked to me like he kind of landed out of bounds before that second foot hit. But
I'm not sure, honestly, that he controlled the ball before that foot came up and then did the little. Again, I don't understand half the rules. And on top of it, you've got Al Michaels, who has gone
no doubt a
full
betting interest in the game.
gone full Musburger at this point in
Yeah.
terms of just openly discussing gambling without discussing gambling.
He's 80 years old. This is his only thrill
No,
left in
look,
life is to hit a bet.
I got no problem with it. But now he does, as they go to commercials for these reviews, like a full-on radio tease. Well, we'll see how that impacts certain people when we come back here on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, there's a number out there that people might be interested in. They're like, get the fuck out of here, Al.
Yeah,
We know
we'll
which
come
side
back
you have.
and let you know how it turns out after the commercials here on Amazon Prime. Whatever. God bless. But yeah, I mean,
getting more and more obvious. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, look. You see this on most NFL cards. There's one line that sort of jumps out, and you're like,
Yeah.
boy, I don't understand that freaking number. And clearly, that was it last night.
That was the one.
It turned out. I don't buy into the conspiracy stuff. I don't think I don't think like Vegas has the buzzer to the refs or whatever it is people are going for. But I will say, for a game where the books were deeply sided in, that one there was some strange stuff. I mean, the Houston field goal kicker. First, he misses like a 48-yarder and misses it by like 20 yards as they're going into halftime at the first half. And then you have that whole sequence where they kick a field goal, but it's unsportsmanlike on the Jets, so they get the ball back, and then they immediately fail, and the kicker comes back in and doinks one off the goalpost. And then, Rodgers comes out and looks like Aaron Rodgers from 20 years ago for the first time in 2 years, and the Jets go right down the field and score. And Adams, who's dropped like 4 balls up into that point, catches it and runs away from 3 D-backs for the touchdown that finishes it all off. So, I mean,
does appear a little strange.
If you are a conspiracy,
especially with that line, that line the whole time, I kind of left a little bit of a stench over that game. And fortunately for us and the guys that came on the show, they were on the right side of this thing. But it did seem
it
very
seemed
bizarre
like
at first.
sharps were. Although most of the people, my consensus was, just pass on this game.
Yeah.
There's obvious. I will see. I mean, I it's not the weirdest game I've ever seen, but yeah,
No.
it kicks the week off to an interesting start.
Very, very much so. And you say there's one on the college slate, and I would imagine it's going to be one of your selections. So
It will
let's
be.
get into it as
Even
we
though I
have.
usually, even though I usually do try to stay away from these mystery lines because weird stuff happens. We unfortunately passed on BYU last week because of it, but
Yeah.
we'll get into that.
Okay. All right. Let's start it out with an all Florida matchup here. The University of South Florida, which is a bit of a misnomer because it's in Tampa, which is
Right.
nowhere near South Florida, goes against Florida Atlantic, which our good friend Tom
Which
Herman
is
is.
on the Atlantic side, fortunately.
Yes, at least it's on that side of the state. But you like USF in this spot, and they're laying 2 and a hook against an FAU team that has been getting pounded, clubbing of seals like beatings the last
Especially
several weeks.
defensively.
Yeah,
Again, we talked about it. FAU is kind of one of our disappointing teams of the season. We thought under Tom Herman they'd see an improvement, but they have really struggled both sides of the ball to some degree, but particularly defensively. And I think that's what we'll play tonight. There's some question about USF's quarterback who's been out a couple weeks, Brown. He has been practicing all week, so most people I've read anticipate him to come back this week. I think that's baked a little bit into this line. Although, again, if you can get it at 2.5 before, get it in as early as you can, because I imagine he's going to come out to warm up, and you can see this line go up to 3 by actual kick. Uh, I wouldn't wait on that. I'd go ahead and take USF because their backup quarterback did show improved play last week. But main thing here, FAU's defense has just been miserable for a few weeks in a row, and it's against bad competition. Like, you could say USF's coming in with a disappointing record at 3-4, but you look at their schedule. There's nobody they would have been favored to beat. Again, competed with Alabama, competed for a half with Miami, did take kind of a bad loss to Memphis, but Memphis is a good football team. I could argue that Memphis actually should be ranked. On the other hand, you look at FAU, and really overall gave up 41 points to North Texas, gave up 38 points to UTSA. That's the one that's really bothersome because UTSA is not good. And then the one that sticks out like a sore thumb, gave up 48 points to Randy Edsall in UConn, which is just a terrible sign there. So coming in this week, both teams limping a little bit. I think FAU more, USF minus the 2.5. I just don't think the FAU defense is going to make any notable contribution in this game, and that'll be a problem for FAU.
we did see South Florida competitive against the sixth-ranked or fifth-ranked Miami team. Competitive for a half before they ultimately melted down and fell to a superior opponent. FAU, we got off to a good start. We were rooting for Tom Herman. He's a great guy. Came in, and you're thinking it's going to be one of these Lane Kiffin deals where he's at FAU a couple of years, gets a bigger job, and would be well deserved just based on what we know of him and the times that we've had conversations with him. And he told us before they covered the spread against Michigan State when they went on the road. I think it was week number 2, Professor.
Where we took them. No,
And he said,
yeah,
he said, hey, you know what? Don't discount us here. And you looked at his history. He was really good in those kind of spots with an underdog team going on the road against a team that's supposed to be vastly superior. And it fell apart, though, from that point on. I mean, these totals, when I was looking at the points that they're giving up every game against not exactly top 25 material, are troubling. So, yeah, I'm with you. USF minus 2.5 over FAU. All right, you're looking at Illinois. This has been a team you've been playing one way or the other all season, so bounce it back and forth a little bit with these guys. And they're taking on the Minnesota Gophers.
This is the mystery line of the week to us, although we can say the public has not liked this Illinois team really from the jump. Home underdogs to Kansas, they won that game straight up. Home underdogs to Michigan, they won that game straight up. And now find themselves home underdogs to a Minnesota team who's playing better, but still come in at only 5-3 without a marquee win. Illinois here. Yes, they went out to Oregon last week and they got clubbed like a baby seal. I believe you're the one who gave me that line, so
Yeah,
credit to you.
that might be the
And
second clubbing of seals reference on shows I've done today. So
they did not look good in that spot. but they're not playing a team of the Oregon caliber there. I mean, Oregon really rounding into form at this point in the season. Minnesota is not at that level. They're very one-sided on offense. All they can do is run the ball. Illinois has got a pretty good defense against the run. They didn't look like it last week against Oregon. Again, you're not playing Oregon with all those multiple sets. Minnesota is more old school in their offense. They play a lot of power I. They don't do a ton of motions and try to get tricky with you. Again, sort of built for that BLM style of football. I think Illinois is better at that style of football. They're +3 at home. I think they'll win this game straight up.
All right, so we have USF laying 2.5 against FAU. Illinois getting 3 points over Minnesota. And another team that's out of reversal of form is Ole Miss, where, yes, the level of competition was patsy at best. But that being said, they looked enormous early in the season, and you were waiting for them to play somebody, which has been a frequent saying, all throughout the college football season, like when are these guys going to play somebody? They started playing people and they started losing, and they're going against Arkansas, and I believe you have a lean towards taking the points.
Yeah, on the road against Arkansas, currently in 7.5. Yesterday it was 8. Earlier in the week was 7. So another one. Go now if you can before it dips back beneath before it dips back to 7 or beneath that 7 mark. Classic look ahead spot for Ole Miss, who plays Georgia in 2 weeks. You know that because Lane Kiffin spent the entire week bitching about the Georgia kickoff time. He wanted that prime time spot on ABC. Didn't get it. Ended up with a 3:30 spot and spent the whole week complaining in the press about it. I think looking past Arkansas, particularly when you got to play them in their building, is a bad spot. You saw that from Tennessee earlier in the year. I actually kind of like this Arkansas team. I think they're one of those teams. South Carolina is another one I would put in the same range. They're not great, but particularly at home, they are capable of beating anybody. Again, wouldn't take the money line on this one because they do have a tendency to sort of invent ways to lose games they should not lose. But you're north of a touchdown here. I think the Hogs are a no-brainer in Fayetteville. Wouldn't be stunned if they got the win, but definitely think they will manage to make it competitive, particularly against an Ole Miss offense that really has trouble sustaining drives because they don't run the football well. And Arkansas is pretty stout against the run. Look for the Hogs here at +7.5.
All right, getting 7.5 on Arkansas over Ole Miss, and going to round out the Grand Slam here with an opinion on the UCF Arizona game.
Yeah, again, another kind of semi-mystery line. Again, the public seems to love UCF, but these were both teams that came in with expectations coming into the year and now find themselves in the middle of a disappointing season. UCF, as we mentioned, was the mystery line last week because they were actually laying like 2.5 or 3 to an undefeated BYU. BYU came in, beat the holy hell out of them, and then flew back to Salt Lake City for some celebratory lemonade and soaking. Didn't take BYU last week. That was a mistake we won't make again. Arizona comes in. UCF, one of the worst passing defenses in the country, particularly among major conference participants to the degree, of course, you can call the Big 12 a major conference. I think UCF's passing game will get healthy with Fafita and McMillan here. Don't see any reason why UCF should be laying this kind of points. To me, this is like a 1.2 point game either way. UCF laying 6. And by the way, it looks like they will now start their 4th quarterback of the season, a true freshman in his first start. All of that adds up to take the points. Arizona, the Wildcats, +6.
They could bring back Dante Culpepper in his prime and still probably struggle in his spot. All right,
Well,
so
no, if they did that, I'd probably
might
lay
be
off
inclined
the
to
game.
go ahead and lay the
Although
points.
Dante's like 45 at this point, so not a lot of worries.
Just bring him up to Nick Saban and then show him a picture of Drew Brees. And he'll
Might
be
be a touchy spot, yeah.
suing the medical staff of the Dolphins for every dime that they have. All right, those are your selections. Curious, though, an opinion. The marquee game, of course, would be Ohio State and Penn State.
Oof, tough game.
And I've seen a variety of opinions on that. Penn State getting, 4.5 in that game? If I'm not mistaken,
Let me
somewhere in
look
there.
here. It was that number.
3.5 I have.
It was that number. It dipped to 3 yesterday, and I am now still showing 3.
Okay,
I
3.
showed 3 with a juice adjustment, so probably getting ready to go to 3 and a hook there. And a total 46.5, which is actually up a point from yesterday, which surprised me a little bit because I would lean under. I mean, I really don't know what to make of these two teams. Penn State still unbeaten, but has struggled in a couple of games. And honestly, looked like last year they just can't get their passing game together in any sense, particularly against quality opponents. Both teams run the ball pretty well. I think both teams have their troubles with the quarterback position when it comes to playing quality defenses. My slight lean on a side would be towards Ohio State, but it's the slightest possible lean based entirely on Penn State's offensive ineptitude against better defenses, particularly in the red zone where they've struggled. And I would lean my strongest lean would be towards the under, but this game to me is like one. It's a marquee matchup. Uh, enjoy the game and pass because I think spread wise, this is really a brutal game in terms of picking a side where you feel like you have an advantage.
All right, I have one of those sort of loser leaves town personal bets with a guy who's been riding the wave with Army all season long. He's had him right from the outset. I believe they're unbeaten against the point spread this year. They can't make a spread large enough. It took a while for the bookies to start having them lay overwhelming type numbers when it comes to points. This week, 22.5 over Air Force. Army laying 22.5. If Army prevails against the spread this week, I have to enlist, or at least attempt to, in this
I
personal
think you're
bet that I
good.
have.
I don't think they'll take you. So I think this is a no lose scenario for you.
They're not interested in a 73-year-old Jew.
Doesn't seem like it. I'm trying to sit here and come up with an argument for Air Force because it is a big number, uh, but it's difficult, particularly since Navy beat the holy hell out of them. Army and Navy, obviously, very similar teams.
Yeah,
The one thing I would say in terms of you, two teams like to keep possession of the ball. Really, you're looking at maybe 3 offensive possessions per side per half. So 21 would be a tough lay here because you're talking about two teams that are really designed to eat up 8, 9, 10 minutes per drive on the clock.
yeah.
That's your only good news here. I don't see any scenario, even though it's a rivalry game, where Air Force actually wins this game. 21. I guess you're hoping that both teams grind out long drives consistently through the game, which is certainly possible. And Army fails once in the red zone, so they only win by 17 instead of 21.
Yeah, they've been dynamite. This guy's been riding their back all season long. I guess some people got a push on that game when they won by 17. That line was fluctuating a little bit, but yeah, Army. You'll see me at the local recruiting center with my head shaved. I think
Yeah, I think
if they covered his points right, that's a lot. That's a lot to put out there. I mean, the chances of me getting in on an enlistment are very
I probably would have.
marginal at best.
Waited a week on this one and taken North Texas against Army
Yeah.
instead of Air Force, but you're not going to get 21 in that scenario. So,
All right. Let's see.
like I said, I think your best scenario is long grind out drives, and the Army wins by 17 instead of 21 because they fail in the red zone one time.
Anyway, I'll deny that wager was ever made. If
Well,
it turns out to
the
be.
other possibility here, again, you see this with option teams, is you'll get that game where the ball just hits the ground all the time because the option pitches aren't working out the way they
Yeah.
should. So maybe that happens. We'll see.
Great mystery with the service academies and Army. Is always what? How many people would you say attend the school at one time? Do they have 20,000
5,000
students?
maybe. I know.
5,000. That's all. Okay.
Well, it can't be 5,000 because I know Wake Forest is the smallest
Okay.
Division I school. Let's see here. Army
But
and
but out of 5,000, they can't find one fucking guy who can throw the ball. All of these years, there's not one guy. I mean, wherever you go to school, there's usually some guy that you see, and he's playing intramural football or whatever, and you're saying, "My God, were you like a high school quarterback?" Oh yeah, I had scholarship offers, but then I hurt my arm.
Okay,
They
no,
dropped me.
number one, I just looked it up. It is somewhere between 4 and 5,000. It fluctuates
Okay,
a little bit, but
nice
yeah, they're
estimate.
very small. Um,
4,000 guys, and
Look,
not one guy can throw a football. They have to run this option.
there's a reason the service academies all play this way. It comes down to size along the offensive line. They want to do a cut block a system because they simply can't match up
Yeah.
in terms of just raw physical size along the line of scrimmage.
They look like Lilliputians there when they go against
No, I mean,
Alabama.
but again, both schools have certain size requirements, and it's not uncommon at the service academies. Your offensive line averages, like in the 250s or 260s, which in 1954 would have been a big offensive line.
Yes.
But these days, you match that up. You saw Notre Dame last week, and yes, these guys look like Luby standing next to, and our friend who is not a big guy.
Yeah.
That's the reason they play like they play. So because their guys can't match up, they have to do a lot of the cut blocking, the old option systems. It limits their chances in terms of lining straight up and playing power eye football,
Yeah.
or dropping your quarterback back and just your offensive line getting bull rushed every play.
Well, we had Louis out there playing George Plimpton with the FAU football team that one day, and
It didn't work out well for him.
no, I mean they had him trying to block some guy, and it was like an Outland Trophy candidate or whatever. And they ended up, yeah, I mean literally like in as part of the pavement in the parking lot after getting
Exactly.
blocked. And the next week, that was great. Yeah, so size definitely matters in that.
Yes.
In that case, so yeah,
And that's
it justifies, I guess, this
academies
pathetic
play the
option
way they
offense.
play, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
All
it's
right,
not
Professor.
pathetic. I
Yep.
love the option.
You do like it. I
But it
can't
is
stand it.
dated. Yes.
I mean, for years, I couldn't stand the Army Navy game, no matter how much tradition and how much of a red blooded American I am, just because it was so fucking boring. I mean, please, somebody
It is
throw
not
the
the most
fucking ball.
exciting. It is not the most exciting game in the world.
No, I mean, play the guy a little cut in there, and he pitches it out, it goes out of bounds. Get the fuck out of here. All right, Professor, great stuff as always, and astute analysis. USF, Illinois, Arkansas, Arizona. There's a four-bagger of possible winners for you people. Good luck with that. Professor, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week.
All right. See ya.
The professor, ladies and gentlemen, here on Bury Your Bookie, always does a great job for us. And, I was just looking at this against the spread. Always, and if you could get on these teams early, now it's late to the party, as we often talk about. But in the NFL, against the spread, Lions, surprisingly, you would think that they would be having to lay an arduous number of points every week, considering that they, by all rights, could have gone, but for Dan Campbell being from the Stone Age of coaching. You would think that they would be favored heavily in every game. Too much so to be 6-1 against the spread, but there they stand, 6-1. And in the NFC, you also have Washington 6-1-1. They've been a surprise team, more so than one that you would have thought would be heavily handicapped by an outlay of points every week. In the AFC, you have the Colts at 7-1. Surprisingly, against the spread, they've been managing to make their backers very happy. Broncos 6-2. They've been on a little bit of a roll, and are they live in this spot this week? That's a good question. Getting 8.5 or thereabouts in their game against the Ravens. Defensively, they've been very solid all year, and they seem to have found a little bit of a spark, putting some points on the board now. So can they be within 8.5 in that game against a Ravens team that just lost straight up to Jameis Winston and the Cleveland Browns? Maybe worth a look at a live dog in that one. But nonetheless, the Broncos been very good against the spread, 6-2 this year. Steelers also 6-2. How does Mike Tomlin do it? Every year, never had a losing season. Even Don Shula couldn't say that. Mike Tomlin never been below 500. All those years he's been coaching. What is it, like 20-something years now? Guy's been there forever. It's been longer than Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher combined. And never loses. Somehow he does it against the spread. Always good. They're rewarding his backers here to the tune of 6-2. On the other side of that, the Dolphins, who faced the Buffalo Bills this week, 1-6 against the spread. They are getting 6 points in a spot to a team that clobbered them in week number 2 when they supposedly had, well, they hadn't been exposed yet as not necessarily being as good as people thought they were going to be, including myself. Titans 1-6, and any bet against Carolina seems to be a good one, 1-7 against the spread. So keep that in mind as you're out there trying to bury your bookie. Good luck, everybody. We'll see you again on Monday with a recap of everything that happened. Pleasure being with you all week long. For the people at Bet Online, nofilter.net, and, of course, Greenlight Ventures, I'm Jeff DeForest, hoping you have tremendous success. We got the Breeders' Cup out there, too, for your horse players. Burying your bookie.